Hey guys, my name is Jess. I'm here with Callie, and we are very excited to be interviewing you guys from Bend Studios. John and Jeff, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
As I said to you when I saw you first, you guys have one of the biggest games of the show. Days Gone is huge. I mean, we've seen it for 2 years running now. And how excited are you to be bringing this out somewhat soon?
Oh, dude, we are so excited. We've been working so hard on this game.
Yeah.
And I know we haven't said a lot in the last year, but the whole team has been sort of nose down,
Yeah.
just really doing our best to make the best game we can.
How long have you been working on it now?
For 4+ years.
4+ years.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow. All right. So where did it come from? Where did it birth from that you wanted to make Days Gone?
Kind of a mishmash of things, really. But I mean, John had a vision for kind of the apocalypse, and a lot of the ideas came from just looking out our windows at the office, in Central Oregon. So that kind of inspired the environment, and a lot of the situations came from, what would I do if I were stuck in this parking lot down here when the apocalypse happened? What would I do to survive? What would I do to get home? And just kind of that kind of grounded our premise in a reality that we've maintained that kind of, I think, makes it relatable for people, and I think kind of something that they find believable, even though it's a video game.
Yeah.
We want to do an open world. Right?
Yes.
So, because that's, because we're all gamers, we love those games. And then we were trying to think, okay, what can we do that other games haven't done? So then we hit on the idea of having a motorcycle as like the primary way of getting around, and not having it be disposable, but having it be something that you really care about. And then we were like, okay, well, who would really care about their motorcycle? We're all fans of Sons of Anarchy.
Absolutely.
And so just the kind of the idea, it all just kind of sort of seemed to come together where you've got like a guy who's tough enough, can use his fists, weapons, rides a bike.
Yeah.
The kind of guy that would survive in a post-apocalyptic world.
So I want to ask about this apocalypse because I think I'm a big zombie fan. I really like zombie fiction. What are these zombies like? Because in the trailer we saw there's lots of hordes, and I'm curious, like, what's the origin? What happened to the world?
So we call them freakers. And the reason is because they're still alive. So it's a virus. And there was a pandemic 2 years ago. So we call it the event. We don't really talk about that yet. There's going to be a lot more information about that coming up.
Okay.
But yeah, it infects not just human beings, which we introduced this year, but last year you saw the horde, which is hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of swarmers. And when they band together like that, they all kind of move like one. They think like one. They move like one. They're made up of individual swarmers, which are adult males and females. And then we have newts that we showed last year, which are adolescents or kids.
Yeah.
And this year we're introducing the Rager Bear, which is an infected bear, the Runners, which are infected wolves.
Wow.
And on the media showcase demo, you saw them chasing after Deacon. Now, had they caught up to him, had he not shot them, they would have knocked him off his bike.
Right.
So that's just one of the dangers in the world. So that's what we try to do with all the freakers, is make them as dangerous as we can, and they come for you.
Yeah, and we have the most dangerous creature of all, man.
Yeah.
Laying away for the player.
Yeah, we saw a lot of combat versus other humans, like aren't infected, right? I'm curious how combat versus like a horde will work. Well, can you talk a little bit more about the combat?
You saw it last year. In general, it's just run. I mean,
Yeah,
horde is
it's
a
just
tidal
not possible.
wave.
Yeah.
It's possible, but
Okay.
you have to get distance. You have to get separation.
Right.
You have to have a lot of ammo. You have to have a lot of stamina. You have to be at the top of your game. You have to be almost a fully built character in order to barely survive that. But what we have is we also have these smaller swarms in the world, which are definitely more manageable. But I mean, if you get overwhelmed by one, you get overtaken by all. And it's pretty much game over at that point.
And one of the things and this is a term that Jeff came up with. It's called weaponizing them. So one of the things we showed off in our demo is it's not just you run from them. You can use them against other enemies because everybody has their own faction.
Right.
And the great news about swarmers is they don't want to just eat Deacon. They want to eat everybody.
Yep.
Right.
So so you can use them against marauders.
Yeah, that's cool when you like send them into that camp when you're at the end of that demo. Yeah, that was cool.
I mean, I think this is a good point. I really like to talk about Deacon because he's a really interesting character. We get. I don't know whether I would go towards calling him an anti-hero yet. I don't know if we know that, but you get a lot of heroes. You get a lot of valiant people going out into the apocalypse, saving the world, finding a cure. Deacon's not really that guy. What can you tell us about him?
Yeah, so I totally agree. And what I try to do, because when I write stories or when I write period, I really want it to be about change. And to me, you got to have you start with a character who's broken in some way. And like you saw in the trailer last year, Deacon suffered a great loss, but everybody has. So what makes Deacon different than everyone else? So that's kind of one of the things we're going to explore during the course of the game is the question we always ask ourselves is, number one, what would you do? if you were in this world and you had to do whatever it took to survive or to save your family or friends, what would you be willing to do? And so we explore that.
Yeah.
And as far as just Deacon, it's like, yeah, I just think he has a super interesting background, and that gives him a lot of texture. And so the answers aren't obvious. Like, what would Deacon do?
Does he have an overarching goal? Is he just a dude trying to survive? I mean, how does that play into the overall story of the game?
He does have an overarching goal, and again, we're not talking a lot about the details of the story, unfortunately.
That's all right.
But I can just tell you there is a huge story, and it's all about Deacon's journey. And you get a hint of that at the start when Copeland, who's the leader of one of the encampments, so these encampments are where the law-abiding survivors band together for protection, and they've been hit. So Copeland, who's the leader of that camp, goes to Deacon. And he's, hey, we got to get some men. We got to go out and get these marauders. And Deacon's like, not my problem.
Yeah.
Right? And if that were the whole story, you'd be like, wow, what a douchebag. Why would I want to play as
not his problem
that
until
guy?
he needs something, which is he's the bike mechanic.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
So even though he rescues man, he says and it is his friend, but he tries to kind of play that off a little bit, like, hey, I'm not really here to try to rescue you. I just need you. So there's always this kind of interplay between motives, which I like.
So is it fair to say we can expect him to evolve as the game goes on?
I hope so, or I would hate to do that.
You just be one of those games where your character just stays the same person the entire time.
Exactly.
No, I play that. That's cool. I'd love to talk about you guys as a studio. This is the first time you've been back in the home console market for 15 years?
2007,
Yeah.
when we had the Omega strain.
Yeah. What's that like?
It's pretty cool.
Being back.
Well, nobody expected this out of a studio this small. We're still.
Well, exactly. I
Right.
mean, you've come in swinging. I mean, you got a lot of Siphon Filter fans. You got a lot of. I've got my coworker back there. Dan is a huge fan of Siphon Filter series. He will be very happy that I've relayed this. But yeah, I mean, now you've come out swinging. Absolutely.
Well, here's the funny thing.
Yeah.
So if you played Uncharted Golden Abyss, it was a full console game. It just was on a
Yeah.
Vita. So the
Yeah.
Vita is as powerful as a PS3 almost.
So it's
And
similar.
so we had Chris Reese, the studio director, technical directors. I mean, all these guys were building next gen technology, and we'd been working on it since 2010. So even though it was on the Vita, it was still a full console game.
Yeah.
And one of the things about our studio that I've always taken pride in as an employee there is that we wear a lot of hats. We work really hard. Like everybody who comes there is passionate and is not content just doing one thing for 4+ years. They
Yeah,
really want to get in
absolutely.
and help in as many ways as possible. And I think that's what allows us to make something so much bigger than kind of the sum of its parts.
Yeah. And in a related sort of question, what is it like to be back on your own IP? I mean, obviously you guys have been hard at work, working with your own creative ideas, with other bits and pieces in the meantime, but now you're out with something completely brand new.
Yeah, that's honestly the best part of this is that
Yeah.
we get to, we're sort of the masters of our own destiny now.
Yeah.
And it's amazing to be able to create something that from the early stages, it was very, very rough. We had a lot of ideas. Just
Yeah.
having the time, and that's the other great thing about Sony, is that they give us the time and the resources to do it right. So
Yeah.
so we're not in a rush to get this thing. We want to make it an awesome IP that'll be around
Absolutely.
for a while.
For the record, I loved working on all those other Sony franchises.
Yeah, so did I. Actually.
Because we made
And you
those
guys
games
did a
our
great
own
job.
too.
Yeah.
It was,
You definitely did.
Yeah, it's certainly
Yeah.
more liberating to kind of have our own thing to play with. But it was a lot of fun. I take great pride in what we did with Resistance and with Uncharted. for sure.
Yeah.
I guess bouncing off of the console questions, what about PS4 Pro for Days Gone? I know there's going to be some enhancements. Can you talk a little bit more about what we can expect there?
Yeah, the biggest thing is if you've seen the demo that we did last year, it's HDR, which is supported on PS4 as well as PS4 Pro, and then the 4K resolution. So we're dynamic 4K, and if you haven't seen it, we're running our alternate demo right now on the floor. If you get a chance, swing by and look at it in 4K on a 4K monitor because it's amazing.
Yeah, what's
just
it?
the detail is just stunning.
Yeah.
What's it like to balance something so getting the beautiful world, but also a very harsh world in the highest of definition? Because it's it's hard to appreciate the beauty of something so grim.
So brutal.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was kind of the whole idea. Was we chose the high desert not just because our studio is there,
Yeah.
right? Which it is in the middle of Central
That must be
Oregon.
nice.
It's awesome. But it's because it is so beautiful. And so the thing about the high desert is it's also in the real world. It's very extreme and very brutal.
Right.
It can be sunny, and then 5 minutes later it can be snowing. We've seen it snow in July, and the whole place is scarred by volcanoes. So the Cascade Range, the mountains that you see, those are all dormant volcanoes. They're not.
Wow,
They're not. They're just dormant. Like Mount St. Helens erupted in 1980. That could happen again.
Right.
So all the valleys, the lava tube caves, the river basins, everything is sort of is shaped by this, and it's all very compact. And it's beautiful, and so we thought, okay, what better way to show off the brutality of the action in our world except against a backdrop that is just amazingly beautiful.
Yeah, wonderful. Well, I hate to ask you a bunch of questions you probably can't answer, but
Let's start.
you have teased a very interesting wildlife selection in the game, and we got a little taste of it with the zombie bear. Is it safe to say, was that what we saw?
Freaker Bear?
Freaker bear.
We're actually calling it a Rager.
Okay.
in
Oh,
the
okay.
game.
All right.
Ah.
Can you go into any more detail about the beasties we're going to run into?
We can list off the ones that we've shown.
There you go.
So we have
Do that.
the runners, which
Yep.
are the wolves.
Yep.
And those, like I said, those will chase you down. They will knock you off your bike. You can run into them. They're part of our open world dynamic system, so that all these animals that you do run into, you never know when you're to expect them. And that's, I think, the biggest thing about the animals in our game, like the human enemies, like the ambushes, is that it's all about bringing the danger to you. So
Yep.
you could be on a job or a mission, minding your own business, just trying to get somewhere, and then boom, suddenly you got runners chasing after you. So that's kind of the way we approach the development of them, is like
Yeah.
what do they offer in the world in terms of making it seem alive but also making it seem dangerous.
Yeah, the runners are my favorite, are kind of typical of my favorite part of the game, which is the player's going to be doing one thing.
Yeah.
He's going to forget about this part of the world because it doesn't happen all the time, but when he least expects it,
Yeah.
boom,
Right.
there's something like the runner. Because we saw a successful outcome of the runner encounter.
Right.
If the player would have failed and there wasn't a clothesline there,
Right.
The runner would have effectively done the same thing and knocked him off his bike, and then it would have been a showdown. You know, he
Right.
tumbles off his bike and then he's face to face with this infected wolf.
Yeah.
And it's one of them is going to live, one of them is going to die, and
Yeah.
it's like, that is the game, and it's just really exciting how those moments can kind of punctuate the silence that builds over time, and just really keep the players on their heels.
Yeah.
It's really exciting.
I'd love to talk about how much of a threat are the zombies in this game, because I feel like every one of the zombie games, not yours are freakers, that comes out has a different kind of level. It's a different sort of threat. It's a different kind of danger for every single one of these games. I mean, you said it's difficult to face a horde. Does it depend how well equipped you are? Can you get to a point where you can face off a horde?
Yeah,
Or-
absolutely. There's
yeah?
an end game scenario where you pretty much have to, and
Wow.
the player has to kind of build toward that. Along the way, I mean, every creature is dangerous, and
Yep.
so we got our just rank and file, the normal swarmers. I mean, they're fast. They're not shamblers. They don't just kind of like this, and there's a lot of them. So
Yeah.
if the player gets surrounded even by 3 of them, it could be game over real quick if he's not leveled up enough, if he
Right.
doesn't have enough health, if he doesn't have enough stamina to get away.
Yep.
So it's something where the player has to manage his resources and
Yeah.
manage his approach to everything, just constantly be mindful. And it creates a lot of tension, I think, for the player to, even when things aren't actively happening, in his mind they are, because it could happen, and when it happens, it goes bad really
Absolutely.
fast.
Speaking of, how dynamic are the zombies like popping up and coming around? I mean, obviously the demo we saw at E3 this year, it appears like, it's quite convenient there was that whole horde around
Yeah.
at the time that we could unleash. Is that a scripted event, or do they just appear and disappear
So
dynamically?
the world has a set of rules to it, which is an ecosystem. Things
Yep.
behave the way we would expect them to behave, kind of like a watering hole, is where some animals in nature go to drink and others go to eat. There's just there are patterns and routines that develop that you can learn to recognize and
Right.
understand. Places are going to be more dangerous than others, and given our time of day system and our weather system, those factor into the movement and the appearance of creatures and humans across the world.
Alrighty.
Yeah, and the thing to keep in mind is that swarm outside the Marauder camp wasn't there just by chance. There's this huge garbage pile there. And so there are things that you see in the world, like there are mass graves.
Yep.
There's these huge garbage piles. There's places where, there's wrecked vehicles. Any place there's food, that's where you will find swarmers. So the player can begin to recognize these places, and again, they'll come out at certain times of day. And so the Marauders had obviously built up that huge fence to keep the swarmers away from them. And as long as they have their own food source, they don't want to come into the camp.
Yep.
It's also why they hang what we call the meat walls. So they'll hang
yeah.
up dead freakers.
Oh, I was wondering
Yeah,
about
and
that.
and then
okay.
and when
Yeah.
they stop there, they don't come into the camp, right? Or they will take a single dead freaker and they'll put a bear trap under it, because that if it attracts another freaker, snap, they've got another one.
Yep.
So
Or they'll chain them to live ones to trees.
exactly.
Wow, okay.
So to act as kind of like an alarm.
Can you yourself do that too? Can you set traps?
Oh, absolutely.
So I could, if I wanted to, hang up a freaker and use it as bait.
You can set snare traps, yes.
Ooh,
Excellent.
interesting.
Well, you did mention earlier about the bike. So do you keep the bike with you the whole game? There are other vehicles you can.
Oh, the player has one bike. He's a biker. Part of his identity is wrapped up in that bike before
Yeah.
the apocalypse and afterwards. And mostly in this case just because it's a machine that he's custom made. And
Oh
tailored
yeah, I
for
wouldn't want to abandon
surviving.
my bike either.
Right.
It's got a lot of supplies that he carries on it
Yeah.
to help him kind of persist out in the field, and it's something where people in cars died. And
Yeah.
all over our broken road, you see pileups where cars tried to turn when they hit a road jam, and they all died.
Yeah.
Whereas people on a bike could just cut through, could split a lane or go through cars and just go off road and escape and survive. So
Yeah.
it's vital. It's super important. You don't whistle for a new one. You can't just lose it in the lake and then kind of go find another one.
Yeah.
You have to watch it at all times.
You
You
gotta
have to know
take
where
care
it
of
is.
it.
And if
I love that.
You could have to hike
Yeah.
across a large swath of the world if you don't
Wow, that's
handle things
fantastic.
properly, and it's exciting.
Yeah.
People thought it was going to suck at first, but it's one of the coolest feelings where I should have taken care of this. I should have taken care of this. And the
That's
same
so
thing
cool.
with the fuel. And
Yeah.
if you don't
Yeah,
maintain
I was
it, if
gonna
you don't
ask
keep
about
it- if you
fuel.
don't- If you don't keep it filled up, if you don't know if you have enough scrap or materials to repair it, it could break down on you and
Yeah.
you're stuck. And like I talked about the watering hole earlier, one of the cool things about our world is that when you need gas, there's a few places in the world where
Okay.
there's gas, and that's where some animals go to eat. Some
Yeah.
human animals go to get their next meal or their next booty.
So
Right.
is the world filled with like caches and things like that, or do you really need to know the places where you might find specific resources to be able to get them there?
Yeah, you got to read the terrain. You know,
Yeah.
you look, the game is built around if you think that you're going to need some gas, you start to think about, well, what if I look inside garages, or if I
Right.
look near lawnmowers, if I look at the back at gas stations, where would fuel be? And then you go there and it'll pay off more often than not. Same thing with food and other resources the player
Yeah.
needs. If he needs, I'm making this up, but salt, he's going to go look in a kitchen or
Yeah.
somewhere, and he's going to, more often than not, it's going to be there. So that's what we want the players to think. We don't want to make anything up. We want to just kind of play into the context of the world and let the players use that as their guide.
Yeah, cool.
So do you say the survival elements are really resource management based then? Because it sounds like the bike is its own kind of resource management, and then you have additionally, finding tools and finding supplies, right?
Yeah, we think of it as survival light. Because first
Right.
and foremost, we're an action game.
Right. It's action
So
survival.
so you have all these tools that you have weapons, you have an arsenal of weapons,
Yep.
things you can craft, and we wanted to sort of balance the things like fuel management for your bike. We don't want it to be so frustrating that that's what the game becomes
So
about.
you don't have to drink water or eat
No,
food.
so
Right.
yeah, we're
Correct.
not doing
Yeah,
that.
Yeah.
Manage your temperature. or
You
anything
become a
like that.
very
Yeah, we just-
different game.
Right, we just don't want to do the stuff that feels more like work.
Yep.
Right.
That's fair.
You want chores, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, good point. Well, you did bring it up briefly. What's the weapon system looking like right now? What kinds of things can we get our hands on? How broad is it?
Well, like I said earlier, we're trying to keep the game believable and,
Yep.
and hyper-related. So
Oh, yeah,
there are
cool.
things that could realistically be found in this environment before the apocalypse. And part of our earlier scenario when we talked about what would I do if I was out here and the apocalypse went down, to a man, we're thinking, well, I'd go to the weapon store and
Yeah.
I'd kill everybody there and take all the weapons.
Yeah,
and
yeah,
food
yeah.
and things like that. And so that's what happened in this world is there's people who have hoarded things. People have all these resources, and the player has to kind of work to earn them. For the ones that he's finding in the field aren't great. They
Mm-hmm.
can kind of get them by. They'll do for a while, but they're not going to allow him to really kind of build up and take on a horde
Yeah.
with those weapons. So he has to work to get a hold of the better weapons that other people have taken and modified and kind of customized for the apocalypse.
Right.
And so is there crafting then? Can you upgrade your
Oh
weapons?
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, you saw some crafting in our alternate path demo.
Yeah.
A lot of things I call it the do-it-yourself mentality, the MacGyver mentality, just where it's things that we find in here, and if we had to find something to barricade a door, it wouldn't look pretty, but we'd find something to do it with. And
Yeah.
if we had to build a weapon out of those tripods over there, we'd build some pretty gnarly-looking weapons. So we would get it done.
Good one.
We're not doing anything that crazy, but it's something where it's all pretty believable things that the player can kind of find and convert, and,
Yeah.
and just get by the skin of his teeth.
Excellent. Well, I mean, personally, I've always thought a katana would be a real good weapon for the zombie apocalypse. Doesn't run out of ammo, very sharp, and
Very
you keep your
sharp.
distance. What do you guys think?
That would be awesome.
I'd cut myself.
What's your favorite weapon in real life or in the game? Not in real life. Like in real life for the zombie apocalypse that hopefully won't happen.
My favorite weapon that we showed off in the demo last year was we call it the lollipop
Mm-hmm.
internally. So you take a saw blade and you craft it onto a baseball bat.
Oh,
and
yeah.
then
It
it's
just
kind of a one-hit kill.
Yeah, it swings
So-
right through things like butter. I mean, like a knife through butter is great. It's,
Yep.
yeah, it's-
That sounds like
That's
something.
distance
I
as
would-
well. That's great. See, we're on the
Sure.
same wavelength.
Yeah.
Do you think about this stuff? I mean, is that
Oh,
the
yeah.
things you think? I mean, you already said it's kind of like, what would you do in the zombie apocalypse?
Yeah.
Did you have these conversations and then that went into the game?
yeah, in a lot of ways, and it's something where there's people ask why zombie stuff and why this post-apocalyptic why is it so big, and it's because my theory is that we use entertainment for fantasy, wish fulfillment, escapism. But who wants to escape to a world where your family's gone, where they're dead, and everything's out trying to kill you? Like, that doesn't sound like a great place to be. It's not very romantic or sexy. But I think that why we like it is because it's a test. It's something where it because we all think, well, the first thing I would do is I would like get to the roof of this building, and I would like barricade all the doors, and I'd kill everybody and take their weapons, and only let the nice people in, or whatever. Whatever we're running through our head, we're idiots for thinking that it would actually work, but we all think that we have a game plan that would work. So that feeds into, that kind of what would I do, feeds into everything we're doing, and we're actually calling this game kind of a brutal test of survival, kind of test your choices, because we're really not scripting a lot of our encounters. We're scripting victory conditions, not methods for getting there. It's a story, and it's liberating because we say, here's your tools, and you can use any of them. We're not prescribing specifics in most cases, and the players are free to do what they want in the spirit of a brutal test of survival. Play it your way.
Yeah.
And story-wise, I think it's the reason why The Walking Dead is so popular is because the best stories are all about conflict and drama, and how you can't get more conflict than, hey, if I step outside, everything wants to kill me.
Yeah.
So just on a sort of primal level, just that, like Jeff said, that it's not just the test though, it's the everybody wants to live. It's that's almost universal.
Yeah.
Everybody will fight for their last breath.
Right.
And so if you threaten that, and that becomes like on the hierarchy of needs, just the the ability to breathe and live and eat. That's pretty basic. Everybody can relate to that.
Yeah, and like you said earlier, the greatest threat of all is other people.
Other people, and I think that's totally true.
Yeah, that's a big theme in The Walking Dead too. It's like
absolutely.
The encampment sequence we saw during the conference reminded me a lot of like going into to find the governor or something like that. Like just kind of taking over what somebody else has already established. How is the balance between like fighting the freakers and fighting like actual uninfected people?
I think if you take all of our demos together, that gives you a pretty good idea.
Yeah.
So I don't know if we've ever actually sat down and figured out the exact ratio of how many freakers versus how many marauders.
It's pretty well balanced. I mean,
it's pretty balanced.
Yeah.
Because they're very different, right? And that's what we're really looking for, is making sure the experience never gets boring, never gets repetitive. And so we use these ingredients to mix that up as much as we can.
Right.
Yeah. I'm sure you've heard this question a billion times, so excuse me. But what is it like, entering the market at a time when there are quite a few games that are featuring the undead at the moment? Like, how do you see Days Gone like fitting in that realm?
We never really worried about it, to be honest.
Yeah.
It's like because when we pitched it, we were, again, I'm a great believer in using whatever tropes to help you tell your story.
Yeah.
And it's just funny that in games we get asked this, but nobody else is ever going to get asked that in any other
There are a
media.
lot of action movies right now.
Yeah, exactly. It's like,
it's summertime.
It's like, well, the Schwarzenegger movie uses guns. I'm not gonna see that movie. It's like, to us, it's about, can we do something original with it?
Yeah, and I believe we are. I mean, the thing is it's everything we're describing today is it's as realistic as a game can be, and still have a story and be an action-centric game. But we really kind of use that tone as a guard against zany ideas and crazy things. So we really cautiously guard that, even internally, for features and ideas we want to do. But also, I think that we just we don't think about those other things. We have an original idea that that's made of things that games are made of, so that's what you're responding to.
Yeah.
But at the same time, we also have the Horde. No other game has that, so we didn't try.
Absolutely.
To set out to that feature was the right thing to do, but it's over 1,000 enemies moving at the player in real time.
Yeah. Really?
They're fast. We saw it last year. I killed 1,000 of them.
Yeah.
Like
No
7
big
minutes.
deal.
Great.
So,
but it's a real thing. I mean, it's a tidal wave that keeps coming at you, and we've seen games with lots of zombies out there, but none where there are that many moving at the player constantly, and the player must stay ahead of it. And it's so we didn't set out to make that our distinguishing feature, but if you to answer your question, it's like we've got our realism, our tone, the relatability, and then we have this really killer feature where there's over 1,000 guys just coming at you nonstop, and it's terrifying.
And the other thing we have is just AAA production values.
yeah.
It's one of the reasons why it's taken so long to make this game.
Absolutely.
It's like, because we started out, we wanted to make a console game, but we didn't want to sacrifice the way the characters looked or the way the world looked, just because we were building such a big world.
Yeah.
And a world that's filled with so many freakers. And I think that's it's, hopefully you can see that in the cinematics that we've shown, that they really kind of help draw the player in, so that when you're playing the world, I think you kind of forget at least I hope you'll forget that. Hey, this is a game set in a post-apocalyptic world. How
Right.
original.
Yeah.
Because lots of fiction, not just games, are set in that environment.
Absolutely.
Right.
But I hope ours will draw you in.
Well, it certainly seems to be doing that already. I know a lot of people are excited about it. And you know what? Even if people are asking the question, oh, another zombie game, I think there's a very big awareness. As you've said, you've a very unique take that you've got. And it seems like the concepts and themes that you want to talk about sort of transcend that sort of simple like genre. Like there's a lot more going on beyond that level. I'd love to ask, when are we going to be able to see more? I know you guys have the game coming out late December this year. Do you have?
Who told you that?
Is it not coming out December this year?
We're not talking about release date.
Oh, okay. All right. Well,
I
then
can
the
tell you that
internet
one
lied
is-
to
I
me.
can tell you that one is inaccurate.
Okay, then the internet lied to me, and this is terrible. All right. So,
The internet often does that.
anyway, oh, you know what? It must have been one of those placeholder dates that was like, oh, we don't know, it's coming out this year. Have you announced any kind of idea, 2017 or 18, or it's just
No, again, we've been really lucky because Sony's just going to give us the time to finish the
that's
game
great.
and just do the best job we possibly can. So that's, we're grateful that we're not talking about release date right now
Yeah.
because we still have a lot of work to do.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's going to be awesome.
But I can't wait to play it. So
Can't wait to play it too. And before you go, I would love to ask you about the tech. I know you've got what you call internally horde tech for that. How has that been managing that and building that as a process?
Just a talented team of engineers.
Yeah.
Yeah, seriously, it's like because we're using the Unreal 4 engine, and we have engineers that are building on that, and they have the physics to get that many enemies on the screen at once is a huge task, not just for engineering but for design, to figure out how do we make a game out of that. I mean, honestly, that was the bigger challenge.
and for the character.
It was,
team.
and the character
and
team, and the
technical,
animation team, and the audio team. I mean, it's everybody.
Yeah.
But really, the real challenge is how do you turn that into a game? How do you make it fun to play?
Yeah.
And it has been a challenge.
Yeah, we've been really fortunate with our talent. I mean, that's just something where it was never in doubt that it could happen. So
Yeah.
I wish we could say there was a secret formula to it or a process, but it's just some great people.
Yeah. Well, that's fantastic. Thank you so much for coming to talk to us. We can't wait to see more about the game. Jeff and John, thank you so much.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
You made a very interesting looking game, and whenever we do get it, which is not at the end of this year, I'm looking forward to hearing more. So thank you so much for joining us. Do stick with us. Next up, we've got Ni no Kuni 2.